Hello, it is Kate, and it is day 7, 1 week into self-isolation. As many of you know, I am a release teacher at a school, but at the moment, schools are not actually closed, but because there were only about less than 30 kids coming to school, this was the first week where I was at home and started working from home because they had rostered to have only about roughly 5 teachers actually at the school collectively. I've been home all this week. Chris has been home all this week because unfortunately he was let go at his job at Telstra, basically because they wanted to get rid of a few people and they only wanted to have free staff on, and unfortunately Chris was one of those who did not make it, which was really surprising actually, because Chris had worked there for a long time, years. He was one of their top salespeople. So you can imagine he was very gutted when he got the news that he wasn't going to be working there anymore. And I'll be real, the first few days he was pretty low. For my mental health, I started off pretty okay at the beginning of this week, but by about the midpoint in the week, I really started to I just felt overwhelmed, very overwhelmed and very low because of it. Because there were several factors. One, obviously just the stress of what's happening around the world. And even though I was trying not to look at too much content online, videos and things on Facebook about it, it was still getting to me. In addition to that, even before this week started, I had been messaging friends, family, like everyone really regularly, like really connecting and talking to heaps of people. So that was like for a whole week before the isolation actually started. And so I was just, I think when I hit that, sort of week and a half of constantly, messaging people and obviously talking about what's going on, how are you? Are you okay? Do you have enough supplies? Da, da, da. By about, a week and a half of all of that, I think it just really, really got to me. I mean, I don't message a lot of people anyway, which is something I had tried to work on in the past to build, more bonds and grow closer to particularly members of my family and certain friends and stuff. And so now I was putting so much time and effort into messaging people all the time, different people, heaps of people. And I think going from so very little to so much, just that was part of feeling overwhelmed. And I was feeling guilty that I wasn't talking to other people as much and all this stuff. And so I eventually just had to tell a few people, I was like, I just need a little break for a little while. I'm just feeling really overwhelmed. And the other thing I was feeling overwhelmed about as well was I was umming and ahhing a lot on whether to go back to Coles, my old job. And because it was either go back to Coles and it was kind of like relieve any kind of stress in the long term, like the worst case scenario, what if my contract at the school, they cancel it and I can't get a job at Coles later because I didn't take it now or stuff like that, versus the short-term stress, which is I don't want to go back to Coles. So I worked there for a very long time. It's a very stressful job because of the customers, and you just go, when we've gone shopping, it is 10 times worse because everybody's agitated, it's extremely busy, and it just, like the front lines. I was also really stressed at the idea of going back because this was kind of more at the forefront, but I was trying not to think about it too much, which was, it's like a hot zone for getting the virus. If I start going to work there, the chances, if I don't have it already, I am probably going to get it there. I know that can be said the same for working at a school, but I just felt like you're working around a lot of the public, and a lot of Australians, unfortunately, are not taking precautions, are not taking this seriously. And there's so many elderly people at the supermarkets. And I was just really worried that I would get it and then I would pass it on to Chris or my mom or my dad or my pet rabbit. So I was feeling very overwhelmed about that because I felt like I had to go back to Coles, but I really didn't want to. And at this stage of pretty much going with, I'm not going back to Coles now. If things continue and things somehow do get worse, mainly if they do cancel my contract, that's the main thing, then I will go and I will apply for welfare. I will apply for Coles. I will apply to other places. I made a budget yesterday, which helped put my mind at ease, namely that we will probably be fine, definitely in the short term, and we should hypothetically be okay even if the worst situation happened. But we'll see. And going back to Chris, he's applied for welfare Centrelink payments, which should come in probably starting in the next month, because he's still getting paid from Telstra for the next few weeks. He's applied to a few jobs, and right now we are coping. Chris is playing a lot of Final Fantasy VII and Animal Crossing. I'm playing a lot of Animal Crossing as well. I'm trying to keep myself busy with lots of things that I've always wanted to do, but didn't really have time for beforehand. Alright, so every morning I've been coming out when the weather is good and trying to start gardening, because I never really had time to garden before, and it shows because there are many little dead flowers and overgrown bushes. This red rose bush was leaning when we moved in. And yes, altogether I can finally start concentrating on it. So I'm just focusing on the front for now. We also have side garden that's very overgrown, and that's going to get some love and attention as well. One of my biggest sadnesses is that the fence was like this when we moved in, and I emailed the real estate asking if it could be fixed and possibly painted. They did get back to me that they would send someone to fix it, but this was before the outbreak, and so now we're probably going to have to just continue to live with this for the rest of the year. This rose bush has grown and wedged itself between these two boards, and it's really, I'm probably going to have to saw off maybe this one or something and get it loose. And I'm hopeful that by the end of all of this, the garden will look at least a lot nicer and trimmed back and put together, and I'll have a bit of pride in it. So Floof technically could go into the kitchen if he really wanted to, but he's scared, which is kind of hilarious because every other time we've ever put up a barrier, he will do everything in his power to get past that barrier, but now he could go anywhere in the whole house. Not that we want him to, but he could, theoretically. Oh no, kitchen's scary. It's too open. It's too much for me. I can't do it. Alright, so we've jumped into the future now. It is now just a little bit past week 2. So I'll do a quick update of what that week was like and talk about some other things. So let's talk about Chris, because a couple of things happened with Chris this week. Unfortunately, he got what's called an abscess, which is kind of like a boil. And so we've gone to the doctors a couple of times to get that sorted, and he's doing much better now. The second part of Chris news is that he actually did get a job offer, but we're still waiting on sort of the confirmation of when he's coming in, if he's coming in. So it's still a little bit up in the air at this point. In other news, it was my birthday this week. I turned 31. Didn't have like a party or anything. The celebration consisted of pizza and ice cream and cake, pretty much. And I just had a nice day. Week 2 was also my last day of working at the school for one day. There were only about 15 kids, I want to say. It does look like going into next term after this 2-week school holiday period, they do predict that it's probably going to continue where kids are going to be encouraged to stay home, do the online learning, and we'll still see what happens. I'm honestly half expecting that a lot of parents are gonna shove their kids back into school, because at that point, the majority of kids have been at home for about a month. So I do predict that we may have an influx of children unless the government says that schools have to be closed. But as of speaking right now, like things are sort of getting better here in Australia, we might be speaking too soon. But generally, things are still pretty okay for the most part. It was also Easter this week. I didn't actually buy any chocolate for myself or anyone, but a few people gave me chocolate when I was at school that one day. So that was really sweet and that was really nice. I've always wanted to do these. They're like gradual, starting off and get increasingly harder type challenges. So there's a plank challenge. Oh, they're all like 30 days. Plank, jumping jacks, skipping rope, squats, and push up. And that's just some extra stuff to help motivate me and keep me on track. And week 2 was very light on socializing, which I think helped me a lot mentally. I only spoke to a few family members a few times, particularly because it was my birthday. I got contacted by my brothers and my parents, so that was really nice. Not online quite as much, and that's starting to help me feel more normal and focused on what I want to do. But anyway, that was now week 1 and week 2. I will stop the video now and I will make another update at the end of week 3. So stay safe, try to do some things, and just do your best.